The last time I was here at the BIC was to see River Dance. And the light show that accompanied Carolyn Monteith's talk transported me right back there. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come and share a few ideas with you this afternoon. Other people have had 30 minutes to talk. I have been given 15. But nonetheless, I am very grateful for that. My name is Philippa Robinson, and in your programs it's got Philippa Robinson, open bracket, Kennel Club, close bracket. I don't work for the Kennel Club. I run 2 independent projects that campaign on dog health and welfare. But within those, I have been working with the Kennel Club on a number of interesting health-related projects, and that's what I want to cover with you today, and their role in that. So I'm very, very happy to be here. Now, some of the scenarios I will be talking about do relate to dogs, but I'm all badged up with my Cat Protection League badge because in actual fact, a lot of the methodology that I'm going to be sharing with you today could be applied to any animal welfare situation. So please don't switch off if you are a cat person. I believe what I have to say could apply to you as well. When I look at a dog, or even a picture of a dog, I really struggle to fathom out why a creature, such a lovely, fabulous, great creature, why their health and welfare is surrounded by so much controversy. Why are even some of the breeds themselves so contentious? And I really struggle to fathom that out. If we just have a quick think about some of those controversies and some of those contentious issues, I've got up here a list that I've put together. These are some of the welfare and health issues that we are facing in dogs here currently in 2015. Many of the fantastic work that you're all doing in your organizations will relate to some of these controversies and issues. My projects tend to work and focus on inherited disease and exaggerated conformation, but I've also done an awful lot of campaigning trying to tackle the outdated legislation which is working against all of us, and of course that issue of weak enforcement. So you might prioritize that list differently, you might add issues to that list, but we can sort of take it as read. That's a fair summary of some of the issues we've faced in dog health and welfare in 2015. And for the areas that I focus on, which is inherited disease and exaggerated conformation, the recent history of that could be summarized in the following audit trail. 2008, Pedigree Dogs Exposed broadcast. That then led to the Bateson inquiry and a couple of other major pieces of research, and then the formation of the Dog Advisory Council. I haven't got time today to talk you through why. You just have to take it as read that at 2006 to 2008, I was somebody who was very, very angry about dog health in particular, but dog health and welfare as well. So angry, in fact, that I put myself in touch with Jemima Harrison, and I got heavily involved in the making of Pedigree Dogs Exposed. I spent 4 days, at least 4 days, filming with her on that. And I was fully supportive of that piece of work. And the reason for that is because I bought hook, line, and sinker the anti-Kennel Club rhetoric. I was convinced that that was the reason why I had had such a painful experience in dog ownership. So angry, in fact, that around the time of the Bateson inquiry, I decided to embark upon a piece of work. You might have noticed that I do have initials after my name. I've got an MSc. My MSc, though, ladies and gentlemen, is in social science. And the project I decided to embark upon in 2010 was a history project. And the reason I set out to do that was because I wanted to prove once and for all just how inert the Kennel Club had been on dog health. And I have to say, I wasn't working on that project for very long when suddenly that anti-Kennel Club rhetoric began to lose its grip on me. Because when I started to look at the history of dog health and welfare, I discovered that it's much more complex than that. It's much more complex than blaming one stakeholder. Blaming one stakeholder is very oversimplistic, and now, some 5 years on from starting that history project, I would say not only is it oversimplistic, it's actually possibly quite dangerous. So I would be quite happy to talk for hours on my timeline. I begin it in 1854, and I bring it right up to the present day. It's just on an Excel spreadsheet. How clear is that for you? Just the colour coding is probably what you can see there. Purple for the Kennel Club, blue for the welfare charities, the sector that you all work from. The sort of orangey red colour is the veterinary profession. And I've plotted it all out. And it started to get me asking different questions. Yes, the history of the Kennel Club is there for you to see. But what started to surprise me was that the Kennel Club have actually been doing things, very interesting things on health. Just put a few in there. 1965, the BVA health screening for hip and eye was started. 1987, that is a really interesting year because the Kennel Club were running a collaborative project with the BSAVA and the RSPCA looking at indiscriminate breeding. And also the KC in 1987 were set up a working party to look at inherited disease. So this history started me asking different questions. It wasn't a question of why has the Kennel Club not been doing anything all this time? The question is, those look like really interesting projects in 1987. What happened to them? Where did they go? Also on my timeline, I started to plot the histories of other agents, other organizations, some of whom you might work for. And of course, the history of that then demonstrates that 1824, the RSPCA were established. I think the 1860, the Home for Lost and Starving Dogs in Holloway, I think that was the beginning of Battersea. And then in 1891, you have the National Canine Defence League, which of course became the Dogs Trust. And can you imagine the sort of questions that started me asking? Okay, 2015, we've still got a lot of health and welfare issues, yet these august organizations have been around for a long time. Now, I think some of you are probably sitting there thinking now, where exactly is she going with this? Well, I'll tell you exactly where I'm going. The point is, when you look at history, it becomes clear that the health and welfare issues we face in dogs are not about one stakeholder. They're complicated. There's a whole raft of societal and cultural factors that have created those issues. And this started me thinking about systems thinking, which again is something I bring to the table from actually business school, organizational development, organizational management. This is a short summary version of the system that we have got here working on dog health and welfare in some capacity. And of course, the problem with that is that it's heavily siloed. And even within those silos, you've got silos. So the veterinary profession are siloed into veterinary specialisms. The welfare sector is siloed into your own organizations, although it was wonderful to hear today some of the collaborative work that you are embarking on. The Kennel Club itself, of course, is siloed into different breeds. And the problem with that system is that there's no overarching, unifying vision for where we should go with dog health and welfare. And it's difficult to work across those silos. But this is my key point that I want you to take away in my 15 minutes. I've got 5 minutes left. I haven't got the time to talk you through systems thinking in detail, but I really believe it's something worth us picking up and looking at, because what a systems thinking approach does is move away from headlines and focus on trend lines. It moves away from single events and asking us to look at patterns. It moves away from blaming of one stakeholder and asks us to look at our relationships between stakeholders, and it's a powerful tool for tackling complexity. And once you start to work on it, how clear is that for you? Oh, yeah, that's good. No, that's not too bad. You then create a systems map. Now, this is where I've put dogs on this map, but we could put cats, we could put rabbits, we could put custard creams on it. It doesn't matter. The point is you map out the process, what's actually happening to the dogs at this time. And as you can see, I've got supply and demand on it. And the problem that we all face is that if you look at the supply of dogs comes from a range of different sources: breeders, rescues, imported. Unfortunately for us, the supply doesn't all come from high welfare breeders. Now, this is where the work of the Kennel Club kicks in, because I have been scrutinizing in detail some of the work that they've been doing. And if you think about it, the problem with having so many breeders breeding at different levels of welfare is, how do we signpost the puppy buying public to the right level of breeders? Well, the Kennel Club have got their assured breeder scheme, which is an attempt at doing that. They have got the 3 key elements for me in that scheme are the fact that the breeders have got a site visit, they systematically collect data from the puppy buyers after purchase, and the scheme itself is subject to continuous improvement. So I think that that looks like a really interesting project to help us explore what high welfare should look like in breeding. Now, much of your work will probably be linked to the owner's side. So that is, you've got owners with different levels of knowledge and owners with different levels of a sense of duty. If they all had a high sense of duty, you in your work wouldn't be presented with so many problems. So a systems map is worth us looking at, I believe. And here's one that I haven't got time to talk about, but I've been working on one specifically for French bulldogs. And again, you can build in more and more complexity. So there, and again, the Kennel Club can furnish me with a lot of data about where their French bulldogs are being bred. They're supporting projects like Vet Compass, so we can actually get some data on what are the health issues with French bulldogs. And we can look at the breeder education. So you can develop the level of complexity in your map using systems thinking. But just quickly in summary, because I've only got a couple of minutes left, the power of systems thinking is that it will help us to understand where we can better intervene and maybe accelerate progress. To do that, though, we need to plot the map with data. And I have to say that in my few years of working with the Kennel Club, they're fantastic at providing me with data. But again, my problem there is that not all of the dogs come within their system. I think it's about 40%. So I need data from other sources. Once you've got that data, you can observe trends, and we can start to understand links and relationships. And then we can identify where best to intervene, and maybe set up pilot interventions and evaluate. And again, the Assured Breeder Scheme is a good example of that. But as is your collaborative work that I heard about earlier on looking at behavioural assessments. You talked there about piloting it and evaluating it. That is all really good practice. So fantastic. I've come back to my last slide. I've got 55 seconds left. I told you earlier about the bad news of that siloed system. Well, there's some good news about it too. Because, yes, whilst it is heavily siloed, with, again, a sort of sociology hat on, in fact, human resource management hat on, what I also see in that system is a fantastic amount of resource. I could touch on the financial resource. I could say, yes, what is it? The Dogs Trust's annual income is about 76 million. Batters's, I don't know off the top of my head, 22 million. If you think of industry, the dog food industry alone is heading for nearly £2 billion turnover by 2019. So there's masses of financial resources in there, actually, tied up in that system. It's just about how we use it and how we access it. But there's another really good piece of news within that system. Along my campaigning trail, I have met many of you. And so what excites me about that system, and I'm including the Kennel Club in this, is that there's a fantastic amount of talented, passionate people. You sitting in front of me today. The problem with the system, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, is that it has sometimes straight-jacketed you and your passion and your talent and experience. So again, one of the reasons why I advocate a strong systems thinking approach is that I believe it will help take those straitjackets off you, and we can really maximize and optimize the talent and the resources that you have, and that those dog welfare problems will be consigned to the past eventually. That's it. I've done my 15 minutes.
Well done.
Thank you very much for listening.